You know what hurts more than a last lap crash at Daytona? Watching the sport you love tear itself apart in a courtroom. And right now, that's exactly what's happening to NASCAR. Michael Jordan, yes, that Michael Jordan is taking NASCAR to court. And the things coming out of this trial are ugly. Really ugly. We're talking about leaked text messages where NASCAR's president called a legendary team owner a stupid redneck who needs to be taken out back and flogged. We're talking about a judge who already said NASCAR has too much power, and we're talking about a fight that could change NASCAR forever. Two race teams refused to sign NASCAR's new contract last September. Every other team signed. These two said no and took NASCAR to court instead. Why? Because they think NASCAR is running a monopoly. They think the system is unfair. And a federal judge just agreed with part of their argument. Steve Phelps is NASCAR's commissioner. He's one of the top guys. And back in 2023, he sent some text messages about Richard Childress. Richard Childress. He's been in NASCAR for 60 years. He was a driver, then a team owner. He owned Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s car. The man is a legend and a Hall of Fame member. Here's what Steve Phelps said about him. He called Childress an idiot and a dinosaur. He said Childress is a stupid redneck who owes his entire fortune to NASCAR. Then Phelps said Childress needs to be taken out back and flogged. Flogged means beaten, like tortured. That's what NASCAR's commissioner said about one of the sport's most respected owners. When these texts leaked, Richard Childress said he's thinking about suing NASCAR over it. That's how bad it was. And it wasn't just Childress. Other leaked messages showed a NASCAR executive saying fans can't read. There were texts about trying to kill Tony Stewart's racing series. On the other side, someone from 2311 said Jim France would have to die before they got a fair deal. For years, some NASCAR fans felt like the sport's leadership looked down on them. They felt like NASCAR wanted to leave the South behind and chase different fans. Now we have proof. The word redneck wasn't a compliment. It was an insult from the commissioner about a Hall of Fame owner. NASCAR has something called charters. Without a charter, you make way less money. Only 1/3 of what chartered teams make. That's huge. Charters are worth a lot now. Back in 2021, one sold for $13.5 million. Last year, one sold for $28 million. The most recent sale was $45 million. NASCAR introduced charters in 2016 to give teams security. Before that, teams could show up at a race and not make the field. They could go broke trying to keep up. But the teams wanted more. They spent 2 years negotiating with NASCAR. They wanted charters to be permanent. They wanted a bigger share of NASCAR's revenue. They wanted a voice in how the sport is run. NASCAR said no to most of that. In the old deal, teams got 37% of media revenue. In the new deal, they get 49%. That's better. But NASCAR wouldn't make charters permanent. They wouldn't give teams more control. According to the teams, NASCAR only agreed to 2 or 3 things out of thousands of requests. Then on September 6, 2024, NASCAR sent out the final contract at 5 in the evening. They told teams they had until 6 o'clock to sign, 1 hour for a contract over 100 pages long. Sign it or risk losing your charter for 2025. 13 teams signed. Bob Jenkins and Michael Jordan said no. And then they sued. The lawsuit says NASCAR is a monopoly. It says the France family controls everything. They own most racetracks. They make all the rules. They decide who races. According to the lawsuit, teams have no choice but to accept whatever NASCAR offers. NASCAR disagreed. They said teams can race in other series if they don't like it. IndyCar, Formula One. Other leagues exist. But in November, Judge Kenneth Bell made a huge ruling. He said NASCAR does have monopoly power. He said Premier Stock Car Racing is its own market, and NASCAR controls that market completely. Formula One and IndyCar aren't real alternatives. This was a massive win for the teams. Now the question isn't whether NASCAR has power, it's whether they abuse that power. The trial started December 1st in Charlotte. 9 people are on the jury, and the testimony has been wild. Denny Hamlin was the first witness. He said it costs $20 million a year just to put one car on the track. That doesn't include marketing and staff. He said despite all that spending, they've made a profit most years, but barely. Hamlin makes $14 million a year as a driver, but as a team owner, he's invested $45 million, $10 million in cash, the rest in loans. He told the jury something important. I don't like the charter system because it's not fair. The costs aren't covered to put on their show. Only one side is going out of business. He meant the teams. NASCAR makes money. Teams struggle. Bob Jenkins testified too. He said he's lost about $100 million since he got into NASCAR. and NASCAR gave them that take-it-or-leave-it offer with no real chance to negotiate. Then NASCAR executives had to testify, and things got uncomfortable. Scott Prime is NASCAR's executive vice president. He had to explain some internal emails. In one, he told other NASCAR executives that team owners have a point. He found out Formula One teams get 50% of overall revenue. NASCAR teams only get 20 to 25%. Then they showed text messages from May 2024. Steve O'Donnell said a meeting with teams was productive. Steve Phelps replied, "Productive? Insanity." He said the teams got 0 wins. He said if they push this deal, they will sign them, but we are fucked moving forward. So NASCAR's own executives knew the deal wasn't good enough, but they pushed it through anyway because Jim France wanted it. Heather Gibbs, co-owner of Joe Gibbs Racing, gave emotional testimony. She begged Jim France not to push through the September deal. She said, "Don't do this to us." According to her, France replied, "If I wake up and I have 20 charters, I have 20. If I have 30, I have 30. He didn't care if teams left. Then Michael Jordan took the stand. Jordan talked about growing up in North Carolina. He went to races at Rockingham, Darlington, and Talladega as a kid. He's loved NASCAR his whole life. He said, "As a fan of the sport, it needed to be looked at from a whole different perspective. That is why we're here." Jordan explained why he didn't sign. First, he didn't think it was fair. Second, the contract said teams couldn't sue NASCAR. He thought that was illegal. Third, they only had 1 hour to decide. Jordan said, "I wasn't afraid not to sign. I felt the need I could challenge NASCAR as a whole." He said he could do this because he's not worn out from fighting for years like other owners. Jordan made it clear this isn't about making more profit. His team already makes money. This is about the future. He said the sport needs to change for the better for the fans as well as for the teams, as well as for NASCAR. Now, NASCAR is in a tough spot. They plan to call Richard Childress as a witness. But now that those insulting texts are public, how can they use him? His own statement to the court said teams need permanent charters. That helps the plaintiffs, not NASCAR. So what happens next? The trial continues. Jim France and his sister, Lisa France Kennedy, are scheduled to testify. Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske have to give testimony too. Now, if the teams win, the charter system could be declared illegal. NASCAR might have to completely change how they do business. Teams could get more money and more power. If NASCAR wins, 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports probably go out of business. Their 6 cars disappear. Michael Jordan's time in NASCAR ends. But here's what's really at stake. The France family has owned NASCAR for 77 years. They built it from nothing. But in 2025, should one family still control everything? Other racing series aren't run this way anymore. Formula One is owned by Liberty Media. IndyCar is owned by Roger Penske, who sold part of it to Fox. These are professional operations with multiple owners. NASCAR is different. Jim France makes the final decisions. What he says goes.